Hey everybody, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2. Hope you're having a great day today. We have a lot of missions here in Mission Control, and I'm trying to figure out like which one do we want to do and everything. And I think sending 10 Kerbals to the surface of Eve and returning to Kerbin is a pretty cool goal to work towards. We're not capable of that just yet, not without something really absurd and a whole lot of luck. But I think what we can do is we can set ourselves up for the ability to do this throughout the course of this by expanding the space station that we have around Eve. Get that station to be a proper refueling hub, and now we're able to do something special with it, I think, because then we can send a vessel that is at least just capable of storing enough fuel and thrust and all that stuff for the Delta V requirements. Rendezvous with the station, get it all full of fuel, drop down onto the surface of Eve, lift back off without enough fuel to get back, but then wait. We just get to the station, refuel again, and then come back home, right? That's going to make things a lot easier. And so I think that's what I'd like to work towards. But while we're working towards it, we do have another mission right underneath this called the Crater Conundrum. And we need to perform an environmental survey experiment at the oblique impact site on Gilly. And this is 3,000 science. And I think we could probably do both of these missions as kind of a joint effort, right? We could send the resources that we need to the station, get the station to be properly equipped for refueling vessels, but simultaneously in the same launch, hopefully send the experiments and stuff that we need and go to Gilly and retrieve all of those experiments as well. So I think we could do that, plus get the extra science for that. Let's go to the research and development and talk about what we're going to need to spend our science on in order to make this happen. We have over 21,000 science. We could spend quite a lot of this to progress ourselves to more and better capabilities. The first thing I'm going to grab, this might sound weird, I'm going to grab Xenon Propulsion. It's 850 science, and Gilly is like the smallest moon in the whole game, and its gravity is very, very light, and Xenon Propulsion, I think, gives us a good chance to send a very small probe that's very capable of getting a lot of science without needing a whole lot of fuel for it. And I have an interesting design for it that I think could be interesting. It also kind of sets us up for potentially going out of the Kerbal system if the developers ever get around to adding that, yeah? So we're going to go ahead and add that, Xenon Propulsion. Next, we're going to go over to Tier 3, and I'm going to grab the Heavy Nuclear Propulsion. I'm not going to use any of this stuff today, but it unlocks the next tier, which is stuff I will need. So we're going to unlock Tier 4. This gets us to the XL Methalox tanks. Definitely want that for 5,000 science. There we go. And then I'm also going to grab XL Electronics from this as well. We don't really have a huge need for hydrogen tanks right now. This thing, the Spherotron, seems interesting. I would love to have one of these, you know, big old spherical tanks for Methalox, but I don't have that ability in the game. As far as I can see anyway, the part doesn't exist. But we will grab the XL Electronics. This is going to give us the very big battery. I'm going to call it the gigantic battery, but this is the ZX10K. So it somehow, even with it being called the ZX10K, it stores 20K of charge. I don't know if that's an oversight, but the 10K stores 20K of charge. We're going to go ahead and grab that. Now, this gets us on the path towards the final two science experiments that are here. And honestly, it's really just the final one, because Orbital Report is the same study that we already have access to. This is the Orbital Survey, except the one we had before requires 2 Kerbals in a lab. This one can be done by a probe. So that's more advanced, but it doesn't give us any extra science. It doesn't give us any additional experiments that we can run. Aquatic Sciences, on the other hand, does. We could drop this down in any water and do, biome research as far as a marine survey goes, which is kind of interesting. This part has to be submerged in liquid or just sitting on the sea floor in order to perform that experiment. I don't know how much science that's worth, but it's at least going to give us the ability to unlock it later. We're not going to quite unlock that yet. I just wanted these 2 things. I'm going to come back to Tier 3, and I'm looking at probably for this, for what we're going to be doing today, I think I'm going to take the oversized monopropellant fuel for now. We're not going to use it right away, but I think that's going to be, wait, I'm looking for the other part I wanted. I think it's in nuclear power too. So we're going to take both of these. The oversized monopropellant fuel is going to give me access to this. I just want a place where I can have good monopropellant too, and I like these big spherical tanks. I love the way they look on a station too. So we're going to grab that. But the other part, the last part I need, is in nuclear power. This is 2900 science, and it is going to get us access to the Colossus. Now, it also gives us access to the KR4P3 deep space fission reactor. This requires uranium, which, to my knowledge anyway, as far as I can tell, is not in the game right now. So this part is useless, as far as I can tell. Maybe I'm just missing it, but it requires uranium as an input, and that just doesn't exist in the game right now. So we're not going to have that. So the Colossus, though, is a very big solar panel, and I'm going to need that. So we're going to grab nuclear power as well. So when we're thinking about our Eve station and how we add things to it, we need to know what we have so far first. So we know that this part here is gone, so we could just take that part away. This is our vessel that we launched up there in the first place. And then we know that all of this stuff is gone too. So that leaves us with this. This is what we have currently in orbit of Eve. This is all that's there, okay? We need to know what we're adding to this. Now, there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about really quick before I show you the designs. And that one, when we did a station above Kerbin in the Conquering Kerbal Space Program playlist that I had before, which is linked in the description, by the way, you can check that out. We had something called the PISS, right? The Pryor Interstellar Space Station. And that station had a tug, right? We had an orbital tug, if you will. It was just a little craft that could come out with a claw arm and would grab parts and then maneuver around and move the parts around to assemble them on the station. And I thought it worked wonderfully. It was great. But this game doesn't have the claw arm. Urgh. That makes assembling things in orbit with a big station like this a little bit more challenging, in that I can't have one single vessel that just kind of undocks from the station, moves parts into place, and puts them in there. It means that every part that we add to the station kind of has to have a little bit more hardware on it to make it capable of moving on its own, right? And deorbiting certain parts and stuff on its own. Not ideal, but we can cope with that. We can work around it. So this is what I'm thinking. This station right here, as it is, we're going to place a big fuel reservoir, if you will, on the bottom of this. And on the bottom of this is also going to be those Gigantar solar panels, because I think they look good. That big tank and everything there is going to be able to store a whole lot of fuel that's going to allow us to refuel vessels that are around. We're also going to place a large amount of electric charge storage there too. And we're going to walk you through a couple of things. So this is my fuel tank that I've got the idea for right here. It's really simple, but it requires to have a few extra things that we wouldn't normally need to have on there. Specifically, it requires docking ports, because I want it to be on the bottom of the station looking just like this, with these batteries and stuff exposed here. It looks pretty interesting. I would have liked to have had a more rounded edge, but I was trying to decide between, do I want essentially this look on the bottom of the station, or do I want this look on the bottom of the station? And I went with this. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I went with this because I think it looks interesting. All right, now we also have some lights and stuff on here as well. We got some lights right there. So at the bottom, we're gonna have these nice yellow sort of caution lights. And when we're in space and we're looking at the station, if we're on the dark side, it might be a little bit challenging to figure out where the boundaries of the station are. So at the very edges of the station, we're gonna have these yellow lights, and that's just gonna kind of cue whoever's approaching that, hey, the yellow lights mean, caution around this area. That's the edge, right? Now we also have these two docking ports on the side here. These serve two different purposes. The first purpose is that it's gonna allow us to dock to it to move it around, because as you can tell, this really doesn't have a way of moving itself, all right? There just isn't anything that attached to this that's going to let it move. If this was in space right now, it would just be debris. There's no way to move it. There's also monopropellant thrusters on this. There's 8 of them, 4 up here and 4 down here. But there's no monopropellant supply. Why would that be? Well, it goes back to, again, not having the claw arm means I have to make certain things happen to allow me to move things appropriately or move things correctly in order to work. And so when I dock my new tug that we're going to look at in a second, when I dock that to these side ports right here, right? Or if I dock it up here, there's a docking port up here. Of course, this is where it's going to be docking to the bottom of the station. When I do that, I'm not going to be able to move it very well, right? Because we have all of our thrust on the little thing, and it's not going to be able to move it quite as well as I'd like. So the docking port is going to allow the monopropellant supply on the tug to feed these, and that's going to make this way more maneuverable so that I can get this into position, because this thing is very heavy. We're talking 200 tons of fuel capacity. Okay, it's incredibly heavy, and it's not going to want to move. So we need to make sure we have a little extra help, and that's what these thrusters are for. It doesn't have its own fuel supply, but it will feed off the station's supply. Later on, we will use these docking ports. We're going to dock one of these, two of these really. We're right here. One of these big old XLs. These are monopropellant tanks, and they store 60 tons of monopropellant. That is 6 times more than the large one does. Here's the large. All right, it's pretty big. All right, they're real big, right? But this thing stores 6 times that much, and it radially mounts to the station. I think it looks super cool. So we're gonna get 2 of these suckers to mount on the sides over here. All right, and I think that's gonna look really cool later once it's fully on. But that is another mission, because there's just no way we're doing that now. So that's another mission. But those docking ports will serve multiple purposes, in that we can dock our tug to this edge here and maneuver it around. Normally, I would say we would just grab it by the back and push it forward to dock, but I can't do that very well because we don't have the claw. So I have to dock it to something to move it. And that's what we're going to do, dock it to the sides. Okay, so what are we docking to it? Well, my new tug. So here's my new tug. It's inspired by the other tug. It's inspired by the first one. There's a couple of different big differences here, of course, but mostly the same. We have a small docking port here at the top through the adapter, and then we've got a big battery supply in here so that it doesn't need its solar panels up to move around. There's a 4K battery in here. We've got 2 of the medium reaction wheels to give it a lot of control authority to move around without needing to use its monopropellant supply. It can rotate and everything. It also can then use these reaction wheels to influence whatever it's attached to. We've got that going for us too. I was considering putting a reaction wheel at the top of this, and I may still do that, but so far I don't have that, and I don't believe it will be necessary. I like as much of this to be, these aren't just adapters, these are fuel tanks as well. So there's a lot of fuel in this. I think it's over 200 tons. Let's do the math. So we have, I believe it's this one. Yep. So that's 128 tons right there. Then there's an adapter for another 32 tons. And then there's this adapter for another 15 tons. So it may not be quite 200 tons. Not quite 200 tons, but it's you get it though. There's a lot of fuel there. Right? And then of course the mass. The mass, you have to add the mass up too. So this is 144 tons of mass, because you have dry mass as well, right? The tank itself has mass. So 144 tons plus 36 plus 16.875. So very close. If you add the battery to it, which is another 10 tons, and all the extra little things, you got about 200 tons of weight there. So this thing's going to have to move that. It can recharge its batteries by just extending these solar panels, right? No big deal. It can also get power from the station's solar panels once those are installed as well, properly installed as well. We have 2 4.5 tons, of the monopropellant. So there should be a total of about 9 ton of monopropellant on this thing. If I take a look at this, I don't think it's going to actually show me that. I don't think it actually shows me that. I don't think there's any way to really know that. But you just have to look at again, I wish they would show more information for this thing. And then microengineer is also a thing that's installed. We could see that, but it doesn't show me the amount of monopropellant that's installed. There just isn't a way to know that unless you take a look at the tank itself. So fuel tanks, put on a monopropellant. We're using these 4.5 tons. We have 2 of them, ergo 9 tons. We have these thrusters on the sides here. So there's 8 of these little things for just like moving around side to side. And then there are these 2 engines. Now you can see that the engines themselves, they're positioned in the middle. Again, very inspired by the original tug we did before. They're in the middle and they face opposite directions. Now, why is this? It's not enough for us to be able to take and hit H, right? We want to hit H or hit N to go forward and backwards. And that's fine for this, right? We're not going to turn these on all the time. But if we're hauling something heavy and we need it to move, we're going to need a little extra oomph, right? And that's where these engines come in. If we're moving it in that direction, then I will turn these engines on, right? So right now we have gimbal enabled and all those things. We take these puffs and we have them start with no thrust at all, right? Whichever direction we need to be moving in that moment, we can turn on with this, right? And that way, the reason why this is important is because when you're moving towards something to dock to it, like the station, delicate things with very heavy objects, you don't want to get in a situation where you're moving, let's say, 0.5 meters per second, maybe 1 meter per second. And you're moving and you don't have a whole lot of control authority on that thing because the thing you're pushing and pulling is so much heavier than your tug is. And so you're using these engines to accelerate it, but now you need to slow down. Well, you don't want to just have to rotate 180 degrees, this gigantic thing. It's going to take forever to do with the reaction control that you have available to you. So rather than having to rotate it all the way around, which of course also misaligns your docking ports as well, now you just shut these ones off, turn these ones on, and now you have retrograde thrusters. And now you can slow down without any orientation change whatsoever. It worked really wonderfully with the PISS's tug from KSP1 when we did Conquering KSP, and we're going to implement that here too. So each of them are facing the different directions. And of course we have the medium docking port on that side and the small docking port on this side so that it can dock to anything. So this thing will dock to the station when it's not being used. It'll just sit there, and one of the extra docking ports, it'll just hang out, right? Dock to the station, whatever. And then when it's needed, we'll undock it, we'll go out and grab whatever we need and bring it back. And the only difference is we can't just grab it. We have to dock to whatever we're going to grab. So we have to dock to it either on these little ones here, or probably what will happen will be the big one to start. And then we'll get it all lined up in position to where this one is facing the big port. Then I'll probably undock this, move it over, dock to the side one, and then just kind of, as it's already on its way, we've done most of the work already before, we can just kind of fine tune and move it into position. All right, so that takes care of our station expansions going forward as well. But I wanted to go to Gilly as well. So what are we going to do for that? Well, we got another little thing over here. This is my little Gilly craft. Now, I was going to go for the really small docking port at the top, the XS. It would have fit this size much better. But I decided that it's to make it compatible with the station as a just in case, I needed a way for it to dock to the station directly. And the station itself does not have the XS port. I could add it over here to one of the fuel tanks. Maybe that would have been the solution. I've just opted not to do that for this design since this is a one-off thing. This craft is only useful for a single mission, and what it's going to do is it's going to undock from the craft after we've got to the station and everything. It's going to undock, and it's going to use its xenon propulsion. We're using that new xenon propulsion, the engine stuff, the IX 6315 Dawn. It's a very, very weak engine, right? Xenon propulsion's engines are very, very weak. Let's take a look at it. It has just 0.2 kilonewtons of thrust, but it has a 4,200 second specific impulse. It going very, very far with very, very little thrust, okay? And the reason why this is a one-off thing, and it's just going to Gilly, okay? Gilly's, let me show you. Gilly, if we select this down here, Gilly has such a weak gravity that, why is it not showing what I need here? Oh, hey, hang on, wait, this showed me something different before. Oh, did you lie to me before? This thing was showing me a much higher thrust to weight ratio before. I think it lied to me. Oh, I probably can't use it then. I'm gonna have to redesign it. I might have to redesign this little sucker then, because it was showing me before that I would have over a 2.0, not 0.2, a 2.0, a thrust to weight ratio on this thing. And then I added stuff. So I guess I probably could have checked it after I added stuff, but it's going to go to Gilly is what this thing's going to do. We had these really big solar panels for it because Xenon propulsion requires a lot of electricity, right? You have the gas, which is in these two tanks here, and then it requires a lot of electricity to run. So if you take a look at the shift menu here, when this thing turns on, it's going to suck in 10 electric charge per second. And so you need to be able to generate a lot of electric charge while you're moving around. So that's what these gigantic solar panels were for, because these gigantic solar panels, not this one, it's these ones here. But each one requires up to, or will generate up to 12. And so I figured if we're at Eve, it's going to be really, really good. No need to worry about it. I just figured it would look better than having one of them. I could use a couple of these things in parallel, but you see, they don't really do much. Like these ones here, I could have used these, but they're 3.5 each. So 2 of them isn't going to be good enough. If I slapped 4 of these on here, they're huge compared. Like this is a very small craft. You don't really know how small this is until you take a look at one of these little, one of these little solar panels and realize, oh yeah, that's a very small little probe. So I went with these ones because they can retract, they get really slim, and it just solved a lot of my problems. But okay, so what I've added to this is, instead of having the Xenon engines right here and having that be the only thing, I've gone ahead and added a decoupler and then strapped this fuel tank setup with a Terrier engine on the bottom. This is going to give me what I need in order to get to Gilly and potentially get back, but I honestly don't really care about getting back so much. Mostly I just care about getting almost to orbit of Gilly, and then I'm going to detach this and go completely on the Xenon power. I'm still going to keep it. It's pointless at this point, but I'm still going to keep it because I wanted it. And I paid for it on the science tree, so I'm going to use it at least once. So I've got these things coupled together here, and I'm also going to go ahead and strut. You can see there's a couple of struts right here that are going to keep this stable for the ascent. We're not going to bother with, I'm not going to bother with payload protection and things like that. I think it's going to be fine. Of course, I'll be doing a test flight to make sure. All right, so what we want to do here, right, is we've got all this fuel in here and we want to use it. And, we're not going to be able to dock this thing completely full. We're going to use the fuel supply. There's a lot of fuel here. We can use this to get to Eve. So on the bottom with this section right here we have with the batteries and stuff, we're going to place a decoupler, a large decoupler here. Now we don't have an XL. The part's not available. I just don't have it. But we're going to place it there. Now that looks a little funny and it doesn't attach properly, but it's not going to matter. We're going to strut between these two stages anyway. And I think it'll be just fine. So it just looks a little wonky, but it's going to be fine, I think. So now what we want to do is we're going to grab a little large fuel tank about here. We don't need a big one. We got a big one. It's right here. Okay. We got a big one already. So this is going to be one of those situations where the fuel supply is going to be fed down through this battery. So this is one of those situations where you have to use a fuel line because the battery is separating us between these two tanks. If this tank was attached directly to this tank, no problem. It'd be fine. But it's not. There's a battery in the way and the decoupler and all that stuff. So we're going to have the fuel lines right here, okay? And we're just going to slap one of these fuel lines from here down to here, and that should provide fuel to this lower area here. So when I slap one mammoth on the bottom of this sucker, I should see, there we go. I should see that we have plenty of delta V. So there's 4408. Let's go with the small tank. Trying to think of how I want to play this. We go with the small tank. We go with the the tuba, right? Which is way more efficient. All right. And then we couple again. Then we go with the large tank here. See what I'm doing here? Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And then we just have a whole bunch more liquid fuel engines and boosters and things like that. We could even go as far as to do something like this, which would be just nuts. We just have a whole lot of thrust on that, huh? We could do something like that. That'll get us up there. And as long as this gets us close to orbit, we then decouple that. And then this finalizes our orbit and takes us to Eve, right? We could do that. Thrust to weight's pretty bad. 500 kilonewtons isn't much. We're going to have long burns, but I think it's more reasonable to allow us to do that. Yeah. I think I might run with that. So we would want the fuel line. Again, we don't want to forget the fuel line. So the fuel line has to be just one. It's fine. From here to there. That gives us the fuel line. That's going to give us access to that fuel supply here, which is going to bump our delta V up way, way, way much. And then, as we burn, we're going to be burning it from the top tanks first, and the payload will get lighter and lighter as we go. And then slap this underneath that. There we go. And then we just let the mammoths do their thing, huh? I think so. I think we just let these mammoths do their thing. Let's go ahead and put in that and that. I love this. And that. That's beautiful, isn't it? Isn't that nice? I think that's nice. We can make this nicer by putting on the decouplers. This is just a lot. There's a lot happening here with this, man. I need the bigger decouplers too, because this stuff is massive, and so we should be able to rock and roll with that. Now, one thing I'm not sure of is the paint, right? Everything's very bland right now, right? Everything is so bland, and I think we should maybe do something about that. Restore agency colors. Yeah, so I think we should. Oh, the engines. Did the engines just change to blue? That's cool. Yeah, so I think we should maybe get. This is going to stay on the station forever. Maybe the station should be different color, right? I think maybe the station should be like. Maybe we'll go with black for the accents for the station. Yeah. We could even go black on this part. Yeah, I think maybe the station parts here will be black, and then this one will be down like this. I'm okay with that for the tank that's going to be on the station, right? We have to think about the fact that this thing is going to be permanent. The tug, I think the tug should be the agency colors. Yeah. Oh, and one other thing I didn't show you guys before. These docking ports have lights next to them. It's the little things, right? This one here is green. The right side of the port is green. And the left side of the port, can you guess? Yeah, it's red. That's right. So port and starboard have their proper colors on the proper side. So if it's dark and I can see these, I can see the little lights, I know which side's the right side, which side's the left side, right? I don't think it matters much, but I mean, if we're trying to avoid solar panels or something, it'd be nice to know that. I don't know. It's just a little thing. I thought it'd be interesting to have that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and launch this thing now as a test flight, and if it works out, I'll just go ahead and launch it, and you guys will see that as a time lapse. All right, enjoy. So the science probe to Gilly. We get ourselves in a very centric orbit so that this little guy doesn't have to use up its fuel supply getting out that way after we undock. It's at this point where the probe will temporarily part ways with our station assembly, and we can get a maneuver planned in the future to rendezvous with the littlest moon in the game, Gilly. It's a very straightforward maneuver without anything really all that special about it, so we'll go ahead and get back into gameplay, leave the station to just orbit on its own until we're ready to address that in the future. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at Gilly. Yes, we have. There it is. The tiny little, well, relative to a lot of other things, Gilly is basically just a little speck of sand. An otherwise unremarkable sea of nothingness. We're going to transmit some science here because we can, and we also have additional experiments running right now in high orbit above the Highlands. We have 2,100 meters per second left, which is more than enough to navigate Gilly, since getting orbit on this little thing is only going to cost us about 300. And landing on it, it's even easier than Minmus. But you got to be careful, because you can, Kerbal standing on Gilly, if you jump too hard, you might not come back. It's mostly a joke, but yeah, it's got almost no gravity. So we're going to real quick here, got all the science. Let's get a little bit closer. I want to see low orbit happen. I think that'd be nice to see if we could get that really quick. We are facing retrograde already, so we're ready to burn it when the time comes. Still considered high orbit. Honestly, I don't even know what Gilly considers low orbit, but we may actually not get low orbit from where we are. Yeah, I don't think we will. Okay, so we can start. So yeah, it's 31-second burn, but I mean, really, realistically, we can just start this whenever. So let's go ahead and just crank up the retrograde thruster here, and let's get ourselves circularized around Gilly of all things. My God. Here we go. It'll happen fast. In fact, we're actually going to be burning so far retrograde in this particular instance that we're going to start orbiting it the other direction. We're going to actually bring ourselves all the way around and orbit it in the normal prograde direction. So there we go. We are now orbiting Gilly. Oh my. Let's bring ourselves up just a little bit higher here. I think that's probably good. All right. So this is the soundtrack they've got for Gilly. Sounds very similar to Ike, if I do say so myself. We are at 13,000 meters, and you can see we're basically standing still above this damn thing. That's pretty much how that goes. Now, our point of interest on this is over here. So I've got us in an inclination that works for getting that at this time. However, I would very much like to get that during the day. And so we're probably going to have to adjust our orbit again. And I don't see any reason why I can't just go polar on this. Like, maybe we just go polar. How much would that cost me to go polar on this? Like 7, 8. We could do something like this. Of course, we have to go retrograde a little bit here to get ourselves captured, but we could be about like this. So we can go polar around Gilly and just wait for that thing to get to us. It's probably for the best. It's going to cost me 24. But it does mean that I can basically get myself lined up and land on this thing with no additional fuel adjustments. So I feel like that's the way to go. It's fine. And then from there, we'll go retrograde from here. And we'll just bring that orbit down so that we're a little closer to Gilly. I don't know much about Gilly. All I know is that it's got the weakest gravity of any body in Kerbal Space Program. That's the only thing I know. All right, so here we go. We're just going to very gently touch the retrograde. Very, very gently. There we go. Just bring that right in. Our periapsis. Oh, that's our apoapsis now. Whoops. Periapsis is now at 8. 8 is fine. Honestly, we can probably bring that in even more. Like right about here should be fine. But it's going to take us a long time to fall to the surface And thankfully, we have things like time acceleration to help us with that. We just have to be careful that we don't time accelerate too far. Although, I will say, if we do time accelerate too fast, we might still be okay. Because we'll be falling so slow that I think the landing legs and their 20 meter per second tolerance, it's possible they survive. Because again, the gravity is terribly weak in this place. All right, so I'm trying to point prograde. It's taking a while because this thing it does have monopropellant. I could be using it, but I'm trying not to. It's sort of like my insurance policy, but also because we're going to get science on this, right? And that science does also need to be gathered. These are samples that do need to be recovered. There are some here, 700 science worth, in fact. So we do want to dock to the station to retrieve that. That's the plan. This craft will dock to the station. That will offload the samples to the Kerbals on the station. And then, from there, whenever those Kerbals return to Kerbin, they will bring those samples with them. So we won't have to returning the probe at all. But look at Gilly. Look at it. Look at it. Isn't that nice? Looks pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know if the Xeon engine would have been enough. Like if these engines would have been powerful enough or not. I really don't know. The game is telling me it wouldn't be. So this probe is just a silly design for what it's doing, to be honest. But I bought these things with the science and I said I'm gonna have them on something, so they're there. We're gonna use them at some point. I think maybe once this thing drops off the science at the station, what we might do with this is send it to Elu. Send it like way out there, because it's gonna have the fuel to do it with the Xeon engine and everything. It's absolutely gonna be able to go to like wherever it wants in the system. So we can send it out to Elu and see if it can recover anything in orbit of Elu or something. I don't know. It's an idea. All right, so we're pacing prograde finally. I'm just gonna bump that periapsis up a little bit. Let's bring it up to like 10K is fine. Okay, so that's it. We're done with this thing. This thing is gonna stay here for a while, and it will go round and round on Gilly until we get this to be here. I think it's rotating this way by the looks of it. So when it gets to be over around here, about here, hopefully we are in the vicinity at the time. If we are not, then I don't know, whatever. We'll just land and hop around for a bit. I don't know, but we're gonna try to get to that spot, and I don't need to be impatient about it. We have lots of fuel, and I really don't need any more than probably, I would say, we probably don't need any more than 30 meters per second to land here. Probably something about 30, if that, to land. And, again, we'll eventually get that. I'm not in a hurry to get it. It's going to sit around and do whatever it does until then. We'll go ahead and time warp to that point there. And then, of course, we're facing retrograde, so we will be able to bring that orbit in. Now, of course, our target for this is the station. And you probably saw this in the time lapse. I brought the orbit in carefully to make it match up exactly with that station as far as inclination goes. Yeah, I don't know if it's exact. It looks like it's a tad bit off, but it's close enough to where it won't cost us a ton of fuel to correct it. That's the important bit. So I'm going to real quick go in and go retrograde, bring that back down to about here, I think is good. And then we'll see if we have to adjust inclination or anything like that when we're done. Eve Station 12 is the target already, so we're gonna keep that as the target. We're just gonna take prograde. We're gonna point prograde here, and again, we just raise our orbit up to where the entire thing is above 200K. So about like this, and if we have like 201 or something on that side, that would be fine, but in general it just has to be above 200. So I think probably that's fine. Now what's going to happen is, right, our speed relative to this craft is slower in our orbit. So in other words, our orbital velocity is slower is really what you get. So right here, our velocity is 2,937 meters per second, right? 2937. The station is at 3012. Because its relative velocity is faster than us, it will catch up to us. And so as I do this and time accelerate, you'll see the station will slowly get closer to us. And that's what I'm looking for until these 2 points match, or at least get closer to each other, which is about what that is. And so right now what I can do, because those 2 points are closer to each other, I think I probably, right about here, where we are somewhat close together, we're going to say that right about this point here, create a maneuver. We're going to go retrograde at this point, bring our apoapsis down at this point so that it is going to go a little slower. We want to basically get closer to the point where we are matching our target a little bit better here. Okay, so we're going to be able to see our target pretty well here. So I'm not really worried about it. So what we're going to do is just going to go around one more time. At closest approach, because our relative speed is actually quite mild, at closest approach here, we're going to be about 3,000 meters away. But that's going to persist a little bit into the daytime as well. So if we look over here, it's in the sky somewhere. We're going to be about 3,000 meters or so right there. So that's 6 kilometers right there is how far away we are. And this is the point, again, our point of closest approach now. So we're going to want to bring this orbit down even further if we can. And I'm facing the wrong direction to do that. I am indeed. But the other thing we can do, right, is why don't we just shift into target mode right now? Oh shit, that's not what I wanted to do. You can click this bar too, and it's dangerous, real dangerous. So don't, be careful with that. Thankfully, I'm mostly already facing target retrograde, but yeah, be careful with that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is burn off the excess velocity we have now on this side. Again, I want to do most of everything I'm doing here. I want to do it in the daytime, but we're going to do a little bit this way. So we're going to face our target now. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I could maybe afford to turn on RCS for this, but I don't want to, not yet. And then, again, we just sort of burn toward target here. And we are going to turn on RCS a little bit here, just so I can get that marker to come up. No, not going to do it. Wow, that is really stubborn. Okay, RCS does almost nothing while we have this big ass tank on us. So we're not going to be able to adjust it that much while we're here. But don't worry, I have plans for this later. There we go. There we go. All right, a little bit there. Might have to adjust ever so slightly. All right, good enough. We basically burned it off. So let's shift ourselves over. Again, saving RCS a little bit here because we're limited on the supply. And we're just going to burn a little bit towards our target now. Closest approach has us at just 700 meters away, but that is still, I think I want to get there faster. I'm going to burn even faster towards that thing. I know it's bad for me, but it's going to use extra fuel, but I want to get there. I want to get there. I still got some daylight left. Right about there. Okay, we're going to be about 600 meters away now. Let's face target retrograde. Now, obviously, we're being inefficient with the fuel by doing this, but I get there quicker. I want daylight, man. It's like right above us. Isn't it great? Let's kill off this relative speed. There we go. All right, very good. Let's point towards the target one more time. So at this time, I think probably we could try out the tug. Maybe we could try the tug out. I'm pretty sure we're controlling from the tug right now. Pretty sure we are. And we are going to want to decouple this and get this out of here too. So that's an issue, isn't it? Sure is. Like, how do I deorbit that? That's the question right now. How do I deorbit this? Oh, I messed it up, guys. I don't think I can deorbit that. I'm going to have to... I can right-click it later, but... I really want a claw. I really want the claw. We got to have the damn claw. And then we're going to have to start using this monopropellant. Which we're really limited on. 9 tons, it sounds like a lot. It's not. When you're maneuvering things and trying to move it around and dock to a station, it's not. You're going to use it all up. And I want to have some extra for later, because I don't have a supply of monopropellant here, and this tug later on should have a supply of monopropellant. So yeah, all right, let's face the target. We're gonna start using our monoprop now. I would really like to just get rid of this because it's gonna make it much harder to maneuver if I have that on there. It's a lot of extra mass, but it is what it is. Okay, so here's how we want to do this. We're going to control from the docking port. Okay. And then while we're facing target, we want to go forward with the monoprop. So we're going to bring ourselves closer with the monoprop now. And if I can get just a little bit, oh, come on, get up there. It's getting close. All right. We want to pick a docking port as a target. And I think to start, I mean, why don't we just... Well, first off, we should bring these in so I don't damage them. The second thing we should do, I think we really should be picking one of the big ones. The one at the bottom is the one I want, right? It's this port here that's the target. So that's going to be the target, is that port. So when you right-click that, you select the target there. So now that's what we're aiming for. Now, because that's what we're aiming for, we're going to have to do a few things here to make sure that we're facing the right direction and all that. So I think the first thing I should do probably is kill off my relative speed for a second here. Just get a little bit closer. Can I? Come on, get up there. Get over there. Get over there. Don't you see what I mean? Like, it takes so much time with the monoprop just to get this thing aiming precisely where I need it to be. And then we're over there now. Okay, so this is good. Now we're kind of moving towards that general direction, which is what I'm looking for. So why don't we go ahead and turn ourselves. And this may be a bad idea because I didn't kill my relative velocity first. So that is probably a bad idea, but we're going to do it anyway. So we're just going to get ourselves facing this way like this. Now what we're looking for, whoops, whoa, where are you going? Oh boy. Now, like I said, I didn't really kill my relative velocity first, so that was my problem. And if we run into the station, then so be it, I guess. Which we probably will. I can avoid that. I can avoid contact. Yeah, let's just tilt ourselves this way and we won't hit it. All right, so what I need to do is I need to get the tug to be on the side, because otherwise I can't dock the tug to this. I need to get the tug to be here. That's the issue right now. Oh, we might actually, yeah, we're gonna miss, so it'll be fine. So what we want to do first and foremost is to kill off that relative velocity. So I'm guessing we just go back the way we're just gonna go back the way we were until prograde faces target. Which is taking a long time. It's taking a very long time. Oh boy. All right, well, it's not gonna happen yet. Let's turn ourselves to face target here real quick, and we'll kill this speed off here. Let's face the target retrograde. It should be like basically right where we are. I almost killed most of the speed off here, but I didn't kill it all, so we're still drifting. So I need this retrograde vector to go the hell away. There we go, and it's gone. Okay, so I'm going to take the tug. I think I still have some velocity here. Come on, kill it. Stop moving. All right. I need to get the tug out. Drifting far. So here's the problem. There we go. I want that vector, that prograde right there, in the bottom left corner. That little yellow thing needs to match up with the white thing. All right, so if you're wondering how do I know which direction to go, it's that. I want that yellow thing to meet the white thing. And that means I'm traveling directly at the station. Now, I don't want to hit the station, so we are going to want to back off a little bit so that we're not going to directly hit the station, but that's how I can tell which direction I'm going. It's basically whichever direction that little yellow dot, that little yellow indicator is pointing. That's the direction we're going. All right, so here's what I'm thinking. This is the problem right now. I can't get that docking port to line up. So we're going to have to undock this. So I want to, again, relative speed is a little bit fast. Relative speed is a little bit fast. I need to kill that some more. So let's go about like this. 2, 1. All right, we're not standing still, but we're basically as close as we're going to get. So I want to undock here. And then I need to immediately begin controlling again from here. Target this one. And now I need to turn myself over. Now this thing can rotate real quick. And that's by design. It's got to rotate real quick because it needs to be able to maneuver very quickly, move to certain places really fast, and get, obviously get in and correct wherever we're going. So that's why it's doing that. So we're going to slide this thing over and just bring it down. I want to face target here. We're looking at that white dot again. We want to face the white dot. We want that reticle to be right on that white dot. In this case. All right, we're going to get it to be, I want the prograde vector to be right on that dot. There we go. Okay, we're facing the dot and we're moving towards the dot. Let's rotate a little bit. There we go. Keep those two things together. All right, and that should get us to where we're basically going to dock to that little spot right there is what I'm looking to do. So get right on there. And this is instead of having a freaking claw. Basically. This is like, what do you do when you don't have a claw? It's this. This is what I do when I don't have a claw. All right, we are docked to it. Now, because we're docked, I can now control from here. And this is the part where it gets real confusing because we're not going to be even. Like, things are not going to be moving evenly. That's going to change things a little bit. But I'm going to control from here. So everything that's in my navigation is going to be from that port. And I'm going to control for that to be my target. All right. So that's what I'm looking to do. So let's get ourselves rotated. And we're going to, as you can imagine, we're going to want to go towards the target. So let's get ourselves picked up, get that prograde vector to bounce up there. It's always going to be a little wonky. But I want to get right up there where it needs to be. Now, we're going to have to use my eyes just a little bit here to kind of judge how to line up. But I think in general, lining up about here seems good. This seems close enough anyway. Yeah, about there. As far as where the big solar panels are going to go, I would like those to be facing on the sides of the small ports. So this is the right rotation right now. And so we're just going to get, again, that prograde vector needs to get up and get towards that little dot. And it's not going to be easy because, again, we're not balanced. We're not, oh my God, stupid thing. Come on. We're not equal, right? Or our thrust, I'm trying to figure out how to tell you this. Normally, monopropellant, you want everything to be around the center of mass. We are not that, okay? So every time I try to manipulate it, it's manipulating it one direction more than the other directions because we don't have the claw. And it would still be that way with the claw. It was that way before with the claw too, so no big deal. But everything about this process takes a very long time. We're going very slowly because it takes a very long time. And this is why I wanted to be on the light side when I started this, because I knew it was going to take a very long time to do. And we're getting into the darkness. Now, this is the part where it gets real tough because we're in the dark. Now, I have lights. All right, there's lights on the front of this, so I should be able to see things. The docking ports do not come with lights. Apparently, they thought that that was not a good feature to have. The station itself has lights, but there's no... I don't believe, anyway, there's any lights on this. Let's turn them on if there are. There are no lights on that. Okay. Now, one thing I could do to help this out, probably a good idea, is just to point it this direction. So if I angle you to be here. Okay, let's say I angle you to be like this. That would just help a little bit, right? Because then I can just rotate that thing and we are at least facing it the right direction at that point. All right, we'll keep that going. Now, for you, we're going to need to rotate so that we are facing the target. All right, so face the target. There's the lights. Thank you. About damn time. All right, so we're almost there, right? We're getting very close. It's just, whoopsie. Hey, going too far. Back up. We're getting right in there. It's possible that the magnets will bring us in from where we are. It's possible because we're kind of drifting there already, right? If we just keep ourselves locked right on target, we may actually dock here because we're drifting the right direction. Let's make sure that our stuff is pointed correctly, though. I want the solar panels facing that way, so the red and green light should be basically in line with that docking port, the big docking port. Uh-oh, not facing the right way. Here we go. Yep. All right, here we go. It's not perfect, but I think we may have a dock. I think we might get that dock. That magnet's gonna kick in any second here. There it is. Done. Wow, that they just throw you into it, huh? They don't do any like little movements. It just cuts scene and you're docked, huh? Man, I like watching it wiggle around though. that's what I really like. I want to see it wiggle around and be like, oh, it's not gonna get it. Oh, it's close, but it's not there. I want to see it move around. All right, well, they don't do that in this game, I guess. So there you go. Docking done. Now the last bit is to just undock this. There we go. And of course, we are controlling from here. And what we want to do is get this dock to the station up over there on that little one there. So we want to just go face. Let's have this one be the target. We'll face this direction. Whoa, hey, gets the SAS on. Here we go. Have a lot of control authority with this thing. And we're just going to back up a little bit here. All right, RCS, calm down. Calm down, all right? We don't need that crap. You're using a lot of extra monopropellant that's completely unnecessary. You don't need to move that. You don't need to use one thing I did forget to equip the tug with is lights. I think the tug should have lights, right? And I didn't do that. So I kind of messed that one up a little bit. So that's a little bit of a whoopsie there, but this is the target. Yep. All right, good. Right there. Target mode. All right, let's get ourselves going right at target actually right now. That's pretty good. We're gonna just shift ourselves up. Let's do a quick time acceleration real quick here. There we go. Getting real close to the target already. Look at that, huh? Jeez, it's like I've done this before, huh? I feel like maybe people will think I've done this before. All right, face the target. Go right at it. Docked. Man, they really they took a little bit, I gotta admit, they took a little bit of the fun away from docking. The idea that if you get close enough, it just snaps you in place. I don't know if I like that. But regardless, there we go. We've got the station built. The only thing I didn't do well is this. I want to get rid of this. I don't like this. I want that to go away. So let's time accelerator really quick here. We'll get ourselves back into the light side anyway. All right. And what I'd like to do... All right, so since we're an hour into this video already, I'm just going to chime in afterwards and speed this up. I want to deorbit this engine segment, but since I forgot to include a probe core with it, I cannot control it after it separates. That was my original plan. I simply forgot to put that on. Now, normally, with the claw, this would be the part where I get the tug out, grab this thing, and then push it retrograde until periapsis is in atmosphere, and then let go of it and immediately burn back to get to the station. It uses a bit of monopropellant, but with these engines, as opposed to the RCS thrusters that I'm using for altitude control and stuff, these monoprop engines actually make that very easy to do. I've done it lots with KSP-1, but this game doesn't have that, which means not only do I have no way to grab the thing, but if I am going to push on it, I have to do it entirely by sight of craft. Nav ball will be of no help here, as I cannot target this thing because it's labeled as debris, and so there's no target indicator for me doing this. So basically, I try to push it for a little while, kind of giving you a really sped up video and some cuts here, but the results are very minimal, and well, it's just not going to work. So after a while, I give up, and having used a bit of monoprop along the way, and make my way back to the station. And then I finally do it. I've had enough. I right-click that sucker. Ha! Hashtag bring back the claw. Because that's default name 25. I deorbited your ass. See? Look, I did it. I deorbited it. You guys saw that, right? I went all the way over there. I made contact with it. That was the plan. The claw arm, it would have worked. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. So we're left with a station that looks like this. And I think I want to move it up a little bit. Hopefully when I reload it, the fuel line isn't sticking out here, because that's not something I thought would happen. But it sure as hell is. And the other thing I'd like to see happen, if I can get back to the day side. The other thing I'd like to see happen, come on, daytime again, there we go, is the solar panels. These big ass solar panels should get extended. Yes, there we go. 1, 2. Oh yes. Big solar panels on the bottom. All right, so we end up having 2 sets of solar panels, which I think is okay. Yeah, this looks pretty good so far. So there's our refueling station. All right. And we can just leave it kind of like it is. We don't have to change it. We just leave it just like this. Yeah, that's good. And there you go. Eve Station. So what do you say we take a look at Gilly and see what we can do about that, huh? We need to bring that, get the science from the surface, do all that stuff, and then we're going to come back, and then that probe meets up with the station and docks right there. And that's how we get all that science brought in so that these Kerbals have that science. All right, so let's take a look at what that is. You can see it's already mismatched here, right? Like, I think that's what it is. I think the docking ports is gone because it's mismatched. It's just you have to like F5 and reload to get those fixed. So this is not really how it fits. When I reload this, it should all fit correctly.